Commissioners meeting. Okay, let's start over. We'll start with the Pledge of Allegiance this morning. Good morning.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, and turn your mics on, please. This meeting is occurring by means of interactive technology as allowed by Minnesota Statutes Chapter 13. The notice and Zoom link were published on the Nicollet County website and also available within today's packet. As required by Minnesota Statutes Chapter 13, all votes will occur by roll call. Thank you. Next on our agenda is the silence your cell phone message. Next is the approval of the agenda. Do we have any additions? Sarah? Michelle?
We do have one to authorize the Director Kopit to sign the board contract on behalf of Administrator Landcamer.
We'll add that as item D under Public Works.
Or, Madam Chair, we can do it as each contract comes up and add that as part of the contract vote.
All right. Next, approval of the agenda.
Move approval.
Second.
Please call the roll.
Commissioner Heck?
Yes.
Commissioner Morrow?
Yes.
Commissioner Lipke?
Yes.
Commissioner Kollars?
Yes.
Commissioner Drano?
Yes. Next is the approval of the consent agenda.
I'll move it, Madam Chair. Second.
Any comments, questions? Sarah? It's going to be a long day, Sarah.
Commissioner Kollars?
Yes.
Commissioner Heck?
Yes.
Commissioner Lipke?
Yes.
Commissioner Morrow?
Yes.
Commissioner Drano?
Yes, thank you. Next is public appearances. Hearing and seeing none, we'll roll right into our MnDOT with the Capital Highway Investment Plan, the CHIP outreach presentation. Welcome, MnDOT. You filled up our boardroom.
Got the chance to get out.
Take it.
Thank you.
Madam Chair, and members of the board, we truly appreciate the opportunity to visit with you today, share with you our program goals and our long-term goals so that as in the past you can see the direction that our program is taking. I had the opportunity to visit with you all ahead of time, and I appreciated that, and I do want to make sure that you are aware that we appreciate your partnership. We appreciate your standing with us through the years in order to get Highway 14. Your financial commitment and your personal commitment to make sure that 14 stayed on people's minds and moving forward is our goal is soon to be reached here with by the fall of next year. So thank you. I want to thank Seth for when issues come up, we work them out, and it's always appreciated, and we just truly appreciate that. As I was sitting here today, I'm kind of recognizing, yes, we do have a few people here today, but we also have a lot of new roles that are taking place. This is Sam Parker. You've seen him before, but he's currently in the planning director role behind Rhonda Hollis. Zach, I don't know if since you got in your new role as assistant district engineer, since we've been with you, but he's one of my managers. He still is active in the program or the project out on Highway 14 and works with Todd on individual issues. Doris Degenstein is our public affairs coordinator since within this last year. And I guess it's Lisa and I, we still have our same job, so but thank you. And then I also want to thank Joel from Region 9 for being here with us today as one of our planning partners. So I'm going to let everybody take it over from here, but again, I truly want to thank you for your partnership.
Thank you.
Thanks, Greg. If you go to the next slide, or would you like me to take the mouse? What's easiest here?
That's okay.
Yep. So thank you for having us this morning. We're here to share our Capital Highway Investment Plan, which is our projects for the next 10 years. This is something, as you all know, that we update annually as we receive new funding targets. We roll that first year out into construction projects. And as we learn and we scope those further out projects, we're looking to make adjustments to our program. So things change, and we're here to share where they stand with right now. Another thing that we do is we ensure the MnDOT is meeting our funding targets and our MnSHIP guidance. The Minnesota State Highway Investment Plan determines how we need to be using our funds. So if you go to the next slide, this is roughly, I look at that as $100, and generally that's how we should be breaking down our investments as we identify projects and develop those. So about 60% right now per the 2017 Minnesota State Highway Investment Plan goes to pavement condition. $14 of that 100 would go to project development. That's anything from design to right-of-way to even construction incentives on the construction side. Bridge condition is $11. Roadside infrastructure, signs, striping, guardrail, 9. Accessible infrastructure, 3. We have to have a compliant sidewalk and curb ramp network by 2037. Traveler safety, that's $2 out of the 100, so that's things like high tension cable median barriers, turn lanes, lighting, some strategic improvements to increase safety across the network, and then bicycle infrastructure, about $1 for every 100. It goes towards that. We take that MnSHIP guidance, and then we measure ourselves on the performance of the networks. So we have 3 different networks here. We have the interstate, the national highway system, and the non-national highway system. Together, we have about 1,600 miles of roadway we maintain in the district. If we count each side of a divided highway as 2 miles, right? 2 different road beds that we're maintaining. We are required by the federal government to have an asset management plan for the national highway system and bridges. And so you see on that right side there, those are the performance metrics that we have to hold ourselves to, especially in interstate and non-NHS, on the other NHS systems. So we're looking at 70% of the interstate to be in good quality. Other NHS roads, like 169 through here, 65%, and then less than 4% in poor, as an example. Non-NHS roads are not subject to that federal requirement, but we do have a statewide goal of being 60% good RQI and less than 10% poor. And this is really how we measure ourselves on that pavement performance. On the left is a picture of that van that rides every mile of highway each year. And on the right is how that RQI is generalized across our network. So green's going to be fair. So green's going to be good, yellow's going to be fair, and red's going to be poor. So right now, we sit in a pretty good place. We'd like to have more green than yellow out there than we do, but we are meeting our performance targets and anticipate continuing to do so through the life of this 10-year plan. Bridge performance, on the other hand, is something that we are starting to see some more struggle with. And we're not quite where we want to be on this. So on the left is bridges in good condition, and poor is on the right. Those lines are where we want to be for NHS and non-NHS. So on the left, we'd ideally like to be above those lines, and on the right, we'd like to be below those. So we're not quite there. And these take into consideration the deck, superstructure, substructure of these bridges. For some system-wide context, we have 242 span bridges. Half of them were constructed before 1975. So to realize the full service life potential of these structures, it's just going to take more investment as we work through our 10 years. Another issue is we have some other sizable bridges across Minnesota that we are looking at. The Blatnick Bridge is one example between Duluth and Superior, Wisconsin. That bridge is taking right now probably about 2 or 3 years of NHS bridge funding just to cover that. But we're hopeful that there can be funding obtained from other sources that would allow us to then have more investment in those 3 years in the later CHIP period on our network.
Yeah, their early estimates right now is that's a $1.8 billion bridge. Yep.
If we look at funding targets, so there's two things on this chart here. We have the first 4 years, the ATIP, the Area Transportation Improvement Program. When all the ATIPs for each district are rolled together, it becomes the STIP, the Statewide Transportation Improvement Program. We really don't like to make changes when it's in those first 4 years. It's a document that's overseen by both the ATP locally as our managers, and then it becomes a federal highways document. So we have to go through amendments to make changes. Generally, our targets aren't going to change, so when we add money to one project, it's probably going to come out of another. You can see we're about $60 million in that range these first 4 years of projects. But occasionally, we have more projects that are ready and can get funding from external sources. So it could be bond funds from the state legislature to accelerate a project, or provide a long-term fix that we wouldn't be able to do with our funding targets. Or in the case of I-90 in Faribault County, which is this big blue piece, we had a project that was ready to be delivered. There were some federal funds that had to be used by a certain time, and we were fortunately in a place with our project development to make it work. And we're excited to have the opportunity to have a long-term fix on that 22-mile stretch of highway in Faribault County. On the right side, we see our plan targets, our CHIP years, those last 6 years. The ebbs and flows here are more of a result of the RQI generally across our national highway system. So as those numbers start to dip lower than we'd like to see, we'll get some funding to help offset some of that wear on our pavements. And it also does include bridge funding as well, the national highway system. With the new federal transportation bill, we do anticipate some of these targets increasing. We do anticipate some additional formula funds that will come to the district to help us out. Another thing that's coming from, that we're seeing in the IIJA is a number of discretionary grants that will be available. So these additional blue boxes on top of our targets is something that we are getting projects ready for and will be pursuing to make those programs work. Highway 14 in Nicollet County is another good example of a program that was done beyond our district targets, and we were fortunate to be able to acquire some TIFIA loans to make that one work.
Yeah, and the build grant.
In the build grant.
Mm-hmm.
In your folder, there's going to be 3 maps and then an additional St. Peter, kind of a bonus feature here, the St. Peter area transportation projects. Zach is going to take you through some of the construction updates here in Nicollet County, but if you have any questions for any of those other projects going on in the district right now, please let us know.
It's great that we created a St. Peter map. It always seems like we're doing work around St. Peter. So you can hop over to the next slide. So this is some information about the Highway 14 project between New Ulm and Nicollet. I think you guys are fairly familiar. That's the 12.5-mile long job. Just some quick construction updates. Hoffman Construction Company out of Black River Falls, Wisconsin. They've been doing really, really good. They're phenomenal at moving grading material. They had a late spring start and some early spring rains, and they've already moved just shy of 1 million cubic yards of material of the 3.3 million that needs to get moved over the entire project before next fall. So they're doing really well in terms of that excavated material, while still dealing with some conflicts with some utility companies. So,
Madam Chair, so Zach, where are those materials coming from? Is it around close to our area?
yeah, primarily right now, a lot of what we're seeing is the excavation work. So north of Cortland, that hillside, there's a balancing of dirt per se, where you kind of cut into the hillside a little bit and fill on the bottom side, and so they're removing materials there for the interchange. Some of that as well over by New Ulm, There's I call it the Eckstein hillside opposite the boat landing. A lot of excavated material there coming to the other side to actually build up the embankment for the interchange. That's sort of one of the interesting facts to the project sometimes we overlook. Right at County Road 37 by New Ulm, County Road 37 is being raised about 42 feet in the air over that farm field. And so we place settlement plates and we monitor how much settlement occurs, and we don't allow them to pave early. We've got the fills up. We've seen about 2 to 3 inches of settlement so far on just that 42 feet of fill, which kind of doesn't sound like that much, but it really is when you're talking hard structured pavement and bridges. So you'll see currently the construction contractor's plan is the following. County Road 12 on the west end of Cortland was previously intended to be closed for some of that Highway 14 construction. That's not the case. The contractors opted to leave that open to the community of Cortland through the winter. Along the east side of the project, between Nicollet and Cortland, their plan is to get some of the concrete pavement down on the westbound lanes. Between Nicollet and Cortland, that's about 4 miles worth. And then on the west end of the project, between County Road 37 and Highway 15, their intent is to get down what we'd call the final bituminous structure on that 1.5 to 2 mile long stretch. So those are some of those updates. Yeah.
Madam Chair? So just west of County Road 12, in that low ground, they put some kind of rubber mat down? Could you explain that a little bit?
Yeah, we have, trying to think of the 2-minute version. I told Sam I wouldn't talk that long, and I'm an engineer and trader by trade, or teacher by trade. The short answer is that's a geofabric material that helps with some road stability.
How thick is it?
Yeah, I can tell you it's geofabric type 10, which is a little more rigid. The thickness isn't that thick. It provides for some of the, where we see some organics that are not too high in content, where they've got to remove that material. We call it muck. You'll see that on the east end of the job, where we have known muck near Swan Lake. That we do have them remove. They got to get out of the road core. Here, it's not quite that way, and so that fabric helps us maintain that road stability over the top.
So that'll prevent frost boils and things like that?
It's supposed to help a number of things, including that, yeah. Yeah.
Thank you.
Uniformity in frost movement. Other questions on that one? I forgot to mention, it's a pretty big job, $83 million. We've not had too many dollar change orders yet. We do have one in the works. The contractors looked at some opportunities to help us save cost and materials after they bid it. And so we're about to see a sizable cost savings to the project across a number of different items to the tune of about $1.2 million. That's an initial cost savings. Obviously, there will be other differing site condition change orders. We already know we're running into a little more muck than we anticipated, but contractors, again, been really good to work with in terms of these opportunities. Their aggregate pit sources and kind of meeting our specs and whatnot. I think I just took up all my time across the first project. So
that's great.
Yeah. Always available by phone call, too, to give updates on this one. So. North end of St. Peter. We did the companion bridge across Robarts Creek on the northbound lanes. Was that 2017? I think 2018. Now we're back for the southbound lanes. We're aware that across the industry right now, maps are inconsistent with where they're directing motorists. We've applied some tickets into those companies to help encourage them to be consistent with our signage, so we apologize for the inconvenience that's caused to you folks. Awareness as well on this one, right? So we've got traffic running head-to-head on the southbound lanes. We previously raised that road about 8 feet back in 2013, 2014. We did have to close the northbound lanes back in 2014 due to high waters, and so we've got the contingency plan in place that if we do see high waters, that we will be detouring along Nicollet County roads. Weather permitting, that won't be the case. And you can kind of see we're shaping up to be open here at the early part of fall.
We want it to rain.
Just not, yeah, we want it to rain, just not too much, okay. Yeah, back to that Highway 14 project and all the excavated materials, that lack of rain recently has really helped them. They're moving about 125,000 cubic yards a week right now, which is just a lot when you think about it. Yeah, yeah. That one does include, it's a short length project. It's mostly about that Robarts Creek Bridge. There's a box culvert to the north there too. That's an old vintage air that's being taken care of while we've got the road modified in terms of traffic. So that's that project. Next to the Highway 14 project, while the road's closed, the detour, there's the New Ulm Spring Wayside. This was an old WPA program era project, and we're revitalizing it. We're bringing it back to being eligible for what's considered the National Register of Historic Places. It used to be a site where people loved getting water. We won't be fixing that feature. There's concern about contamination of water, and we're really not in the business of maintaining well drinking sources as a state agency. So tried to encourage our partners at MDH to take advantage of that, but they're also not in that business. So there'll be a nice view of a potentially historic resource, as well as some benches and whatnot along the hillside after it's all said and done. And it's anticipated to be finished this year. This is just a goofy one. You see all those little blue marks on the picture? They take a photo of that stone and its orientation, and any repairs they do, it's got to be back in that position, at that height, at that angle. So, interesting stuff. The next one, very specialized work. We had the emergency bridge repair project. You can see here, Lookout Drive in Mankato. We had a piece of a garbage disposal truck had his bed up and clipped some beams underneath that bridge. So we were able to get that open this spring and get the work done with SM Henches. Yep, and that was about a $380,000 project. Those are my construction updates for Nicollet County, Sam.
Thank you, Zach. So now we're going to jump into the STIP-specific projects. How are we doing on time? Good? Okay, great. We have about $350 million of program projects across the district. We'd be glad to answer any questions you may have. We have a map in your folder for these projects, but I'm just going to keep it local to Nicollet County here. And there have been some changes. So I mentioned earlier we really don't like to change things that once they get that that first 4 years of the program, but we do have a few this year that I'd like to call out. Highway 22 west of St. Peter, so from CASA 20 over to 111. That has moved from a 2025 to 2026. We'd still like it to be constructed in 2025, but we're just trying to make the funding work for this project the year. It's also has an accelerated time frame. It's something that can be flexed into 2024 should the opportunity arise.
Well, three reasons. Sam mentioned we don't like changing the STIP. We consider that, public commitments. But the reality is, right now, we've seen a lot of atypical price escalation across a ton of construction projects due to supply chain issues, labor shortage issues. So that escalation is here. It's a reality, and so we've got to account for it. Sam talked a little bit about IIJA. I know I'm going off books.
No, go ahead.
I think this is relevant because this STIP has always been a strong commitment, and we're seeing a lot more fluidity than we're used to. We talk about the $1 trillion infrastructure package, but a lot of that's discretionary grants that you've got to compete for. And so where that comes from, when it comes in, having some of these shelf-ready projects is important to us as an agency as a result of that. Yeah. I can't remember the third one, Sam, but...
You probably got it in there somewhere.
Yeah.
And we also have this 169 north side of St. Peter, so north of Highway 99 up to Union Street. This is something that's unfortunately been moved back as well, just to accommodate these additional price, these costs that we're seeing in those earlier years. So that's moved from 2024 to, we have it as 2027 right now. Anything you want to mention on that one?
No, I think that it's been great working with both the county and the city on that one as it relates to an important safety improvement that we all see in the area. So really appreciate the support that's been provided on that one.
And for projects that still remain in place, it's this intersection on the south side of St. Peter here, the 169, 99, 22 area, that remains at 2023. We're going to be installing some fiber optic lines and vaults along Highway 14 between North Mankato and Nicollet, 2024. And then a big project for us, the Vets Bridge connecting North Mankato to Mankato. Actually, the two bridges there. So we're going to take care of the one over 169 as well. With that remains a 2025 project.
Replacement or upgrade?
Yeah, we would call that major rehabilitation. So the entire superstructure is coming off, but the substructure is good. And so we'll be replacing that in kind, essentially.
Big project.
The Vets Bridge over the river, that is. Belgrade Bridge doesn't need that much work to it. That's the one over 169.
And just across the river from you all, Highway 22 has moved from 2024 to 2025 between Mankato and St. Peter. Keeping that Augusta intersection roundabout in Mankato in 2024. If we move over to the CHIP side, and we'll be glad to answer any questions that you have with these. If we move over to the CHIP side, so these are going to be the last 6 years, so 2027 to 2032 on your map. And we have about $623 million planned. If you think back to that bar chart a few slides ago, over these 6 years, we're still learning about these projects. These are coming on as needs. So in 2027, 2028, especially those near-term ones, we're scoping them and getting them ready to come into that program, the 4th year. So hopefully we don't have to make any changes once they get to that point. So these will change, our targets will change, what we know about the projects will change. So the years will shift, but we do like to work with our local partners, especially if a town needs to get funding in place for underground utilities or need to pay off some bonds, so we can work together on when we deliver. But these projects are coming in as things we need that are on our radar that we'd like to get to. For Nicollet County specifically, so that piece on the north side of St. Peter here, going into the CHIP years in 2027, and then some other parts just remain as they were planned last year. So Highway 22 in town here, a 2028 project.
I was just going to mention Highway 169 north into St. Peter. Again, that's one we previously had in the STIP and are moving out to the CHIP, and you'd say, oof, why is that? Well, again, price escalation around, and we did some maintenance work there, and we think we can limp it along until that major reconstruction work. So typically, we like getting as much life as we can out of pavements before we reconstruct them. We're typically at higher risk of trying to take a simple preservation project and pushing it out, and then saying, shoot, that fix isn't good enough anymore when we do that to those more simple preservation projects.
And on the south side of Nicollet County as well, from Riverfront Drive in Mankato up to about Happy Chef, we still have that planned as a 2027 project. So we have some bridge funds to rehab the North Star Bridge over the Minnesota River at that time as well on that project. Recently completed a corridor study there that can be found online. Next slide. So we'll take any questions about these, but here's what we're looking at, Nicollet County. And if you go to the next, we'll show you if we are able to accommodate all these projects in our 10-year plan. This is how our RQI will be looking in 2032. A little more red and yellow than we'd like to see, especially on the National Highway System, but we're still within our RQI targets.
Well, it's interesting too. So, we talked about the Blotnick Bridge earlier, the $1.8 billion, sucking up bridge funding, looking for national dollars for that. causing complication probably across the state to bridges. We do know we've got what we'd call a budget buster in our district as well, and that's the section of Highway 14, essentially from Lookout Drive to Victory/Highway 22. We're showing what we'd call some seed money in 2032, probably about $25 million. But not a well-defined project, could be upwards of $200 million. So,
Yeah, it's a good point calling that one out, yeah.
yeah,
That Minnesota River Bridge, big part of that project too.
absolutely.
So our next steps, we're going to restart this CHIP process in August. It's kind of our hard stop, but as Zach mentioned, there's a lot of fluidity in how we're making these last stages work. We'll receive our newest funding targets in late fall, and then we'll really start this process over again. It's going to be a little bit different next year in a couple of ways. First, we're going to fully realize what these new formulas for the federal funds are going to be, as well as we'll have new MNSHIP guidance. So you may hear more about the Minnesota State Highway Investment Plan. There's quite a bit of stakeholder and public engagement that goes into that to kind of determine how we spend the funds that are allocated to the district. Something else I'd like to call out while we're here, Doris and our project managers do a great job of updating our website here. We have project updates, contacts, detour information on our website. If we've completed a corridor study or have that going on, like will be the case on Highway 22 and north side of St. Peter here, that information can be found at that website.
Well, and just pointing that out, so the Highway 14 project, around Cortland, we do have weekly public meetings at 1 o'clock on Tuesdays at the community center. Most folks actually get their updates from our project website for the weekly updates. So we're seeing that sort of trend and shift in how people want to receive that information.
And with that, another thanks to Seth, who works closely with Lisa. So we're hearing feedback from you all over the course of the year, and we really appreciate the relationship that we have with both Seth and the commission here.
Thank you. Any questions?
You said 1 o'clock Tuesdays?
Yeah.
Commissioner?
Thank you. First, I want to thank you, all of MnDOT, for the Highway 14 project. I was thinking back to 2006 when I was talking about this, and it's just nice to see it going, and especially happy to hear about the public meetings and working with folks out there. And as an aside, I also want to thank you for something outside the county on Highway 22 and having a right-of-way for a potential trail. I think that was good foresight, and I was at a community meeting where support for doing something there was expressed, so thank you for having that foresight.
Commissioner Lepke, you had a question?
No, I asked.
Oh,
Thank you for
okay.
being here.
All right.
We'll be in touch.
Thank you. Commissioner Kollars, do you have any questions from MnDOT? I figured you would.
Well, thank you, Madam Chair. It's been my good fortune to be part of the ATP for the past several years, be on the Transportation Committee with AMC, and to marvel at the expertise that we have in front of us working. If you look at the whole district and what it takes to make plans for what these projects are and the amounts of money that go into them, it's a lot of work.
It's a balancing act.
That's what I was looking for. Thanks for filling that in for me. I have to say, though, the amount of time that we spend wanting something to be done, trying to find funding, and then the amount of time it takes to get the project done and using that funding sometimes is different, but it takes long periods of time, doesn't it? And that can be frustrating to everyone, to travelers, to folks across the state. But once we have that project finished, we think nothing of it and just move smoothly along. But a lot of effort that goes into it from county board level, even city council level, especially our partners with the state, It is so important, and this board put $3.3 million toward the Highway 14 project as part of that $83 million. It's small enough, but I'm hoping that when I win Mega Millions, some of that can go to help pay for this. I know all of our members would feel that way. That's my thank you today.
Across the board, construction costs are up 10, 15, 20%, you're seeing?
Yeah, that's, it depends. We're seeing a lot of that escalation around fuel and bituminous and things like that. A lot of what we do is just move materials, right? And so you think about fleets and those, and the price of diesel has a significant component of that. You know, the cement that comes upriver from down south, that's a little more stable as it relates to the specific product in concrete. But steel is another really tricky one right now, and our concrete pipes in terms of labor shortages. So to answer your question, yeah, it's probably in that neighborhood of 10 to 15%. Some projects we have unfortunately seen costs of closer to 20%. Others have been closer to where we expect the bid to come in at, where it's less complex, localized work, not a ton of moving of materials.
Cool.
Yeah, 10
Thank
to
you.
15% is a pretty good number right now.
But for this project, most of that stuff was all locked in, right?
Yeah, if we're talking Highway 14, New Ulm to Nicollet, that one was about 6.5% to 7% over what we'd call our engineer's estimate, which we'd say, hey, that's not too bad, but it was still about $6 million. So still a good chunk of change.
And when are you planning on doing that stream a mile west of Cortland?
Yeah, so the contractor ran into some issues associated with early box culvert construction, and so they've kind of flopped some of their staging, and they intend to do some of that next year as opposed to this year, like the previous schedule had defined.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you.
Doris, if you have any extra of the packet, if you could leave a couple, that'd be great. Thank you.
Thanks, Zach. Thank you.
Thanks, Doris.
Thank you. Next on our agenda is finance. Good morning, Heather.
The audience is leaving. Good morning, Madam Chair, members of the board. I'm here for the quarterly donations, so this is for quarter two, to present the quarter two donations to be received by approval by resolution. This quarter, we had van services total donations of $300, loan closet $635, for a total of $934. So I'd be looking for approval by resolution today.
Do we have approval for the resolution?
So moved.
Second.
Thank you. Further discussion?
Madam Chair, is there a way that we at least encourage in the best way that we can these types of donations for departments throughout the county? Is there a way to promote that sort of an idea?
I guess that's a good question. Human Services probably gets more questions on that of donations and
Right.
what we can accept. These are, obviously, these two are ones that are recurring, but I guess I don't know how to answer that question specifically.
Maybe it might be worth some research and see if other counties are doing something like that. And I don't know that they are.
Sure.
Thanks.
Thank you. Sarah, call the roll, please.
Commissioner Morrow?
Yes.
Commissioner Lipke?
Yes.
Commissioner Heck?
Yes.
Commissioner Kohlers?
Yes.
Commissioner Drano?
Yes. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next on our agenda is Public Works, and we're going back to roads. Morning, Seth.
It's your road scholar.
Morning, Madam Chair, members of the board and staff. Several items from Public Works today. The first being to consider award of a contract for State Aid Project 52623-027. This project I've spoken on before, and revolves around ravine and slope stabilization project along County Road 23. We have a very large 60-inch culvert crossing that crosses in this area, and we have experienced some severe erosion at the outlet end of that pipe. We also have some erosion beginning at the inlet portion of that pipe, and so this project is to take care of that issue. So on July 18th, we received 3 bids, and we opened those for this project. One bid out of the 3 did not contain all the required submittals to be considered a valid bid, and its total was not read. So we received bids from Holtmeyer Construction and Mathewitz Construction Company. Holtmeyer was the low bidder at $1,731,897.96. Their low bid was approximately 23.7% over our engineer's estimate. This project is unique and has some some complexities to it, and as we've heard the DOT talk about, and what they're seeing in bids is, of course, there's material supply shortages and whatnot that's driving up some of these costs for concrete pipe and other materials used on the project. And so that 23.7% over the engineer's estimate is about $330,000. And the items that kind of pushed that over our engineer's estimate was the clearing and grubbing, which would be the removal of the trees. We underestimated the complexity, I think, that the contractor's seeing there to remove the trees on that very steep slope. That was about an extra $80,000 there. Construction staging, contractor needs to build staging areas right off of County Road 23 to get equipment and materials in. That was about an extra $44,000. We have a fair amount of concrete pipe and concrete manhole structures needed on the project. There's about an extra $36,000 for concrete materials, and then the lining of the 60-inch pipe was about an additional $136,000. So those items add up to approximately about $320,000. Typically, with a low bid coming in this much over our engineer's estimate, I potentially would recommend throwing the bids out and re-advertising, but given our environment, the bidding environment, material supply shortages aren't going to go away anytime soon, and leaving this delaying this project, any extensive amount of rain that comes through this area only makes the problem much worse, and the project's going to get more expensive. Right as we were getting close to finalizing and advertising the project, we discovered another large slope slide that we had to go out and survey and add additional quantities into the project, which of course makes it more expensive. So based on all those factors, we should move forward with the project, and I would recommend that the board awards this contract to Holtmeyer Construction for that low bid amount. And I'd be more than happy to answer any
I move approval, and then I have a couple questions.
Okay, thank you. Do we have a second?
Yeah, Dave.
Your questions, Commissioner Lepke?
So the existing 5-foot culvert,
Yes.
you said it's like 300 feet long,
Yeah, it's approximately 300 feet long.
and then it's going to be reinforced with what?
It is a UV cured liner that we will install, similar to the lining materials that I probably shared with you that we used on County Road 1 to line several culverts up there. And so it's a mixture of different epoxies and fiberglass layers, and depending on how much strength that liner has to, it's actually an engineered liner for the particular location that it goes into. And it's intended to take the full load of whatever materials are above it if the steel pipe that currently is there ever rusts or completely, fails. The liner takes the place of the old culvert.
Do you know how thick it is?
Like I said, the company that will supply the liner will do engineering calculations to determine that thickness, but given that there's 45 to 50 feet of material above it, it will probably be a fairly robust, thick liner.
And when there's 45 to 50 feet, does that culvert even feel it when a truck goes over?
I would say no. That load is distributed out. Yeah.
And I absolutely agree with you, it's a lot of money, but we really don't have much choice.
No. The problem's only getting worse and the project will get more expensive. Yeah.
Thank you.
Madam Chair. Would your engineer's estimate be different if you did it today in light of the supply issues, fuel costs and the like?
Maybe on the concrete pipe, maybe looking at the clearing and grubbing a little bit, but the rest of those, it would have been hard to foresee those price changes.
But knowing what you know today of the price changes,
of course.
It would be different. I'm just saying, if you did it today, it wouldn't be 1.3 if you were creating it today.
Correct. Yeah.
It would be closer to the bid.
Yeah, the engineer's estimate was done probably back in late May.
Right. Madam Chair, if I might ask, Andrew, is this a contract that we need to have signed today?
Yes,
Okay.
yes. Concrete materials are very hard to come by. That was one of our concerns going into bidding, is because we've been hearing through the grapevine that, box culverts it sounds absolutely impossible to get a box culvert this year. And as you heard the DOT for Highway 14, they couldn't even get a box culvert early in their project. And so the contractor did say that, and he's been chomping at the bit, as soon as this contract can be awarded, they will put the order in and have those materials available.
So, Madam Chair, if I may, I'm going to move to amend Commissioner Lipke's motion to authorize Jackie Kopit to sign the contract on behalf of the county.
Second.
So we need to vote on that.
Yeah, so, any further discussion? Speed is of the essence.
Yes.
Will that get done by Christmas, if we're lucky?
We have a construction start date of August 15th, and I don't have the completion date memorized, but it's in early to mid-November.
Thank you.
Yep.
And the road will not be shut down totally.
Right.
That's the plan. The road will not be shut down because we know we're getting spillover traffic from the Trunk Highway 14 detour, and so in the contract, the contractor's required to have single lane road closures with flaggers as needed.
Okay, thank you. Any further discussion? First, we need to call the roll on the amendment.
Commissioner Morrow?
Yes.
Commissioner Kohlers?
Yes.
Commissioner Lipke?
Yes.
Commissioner Hack?
Yes.
Commissioner Drannell?
Yes, thank you. And back to the original motion. Further discussion? Seeing none, Sarah can call the roll on that one.
Commissioner Lipke?
Yes.
Commissioner Hack?
Yes.
Commissioner Kohlers?
Yes.
Commissioner Morrow?
Yes.
Commissioner Drannell?
Yes, thank you. Sorry, we added work to you there. All right, next item, Seth.
The next item is to consider financial participation in a Trunk Highway 22 corridor study. Some past history on this. At one point, the DOT had approached myself to talk about a potential of a Trunk Highway 22 turnback from 169 to Trunk Highway 111. We had discussions that were ongoing for probably a couple years, seeing if we could come to a potential rough scope of a turnback agreement that I would feel comfortable presenting to the county board. We had a good discussion, but it never came to a point where we felt like we had a type of project that I could feel comfortable presenting to the county board. And so the state knows that work needs to occur on Trunk Highway 22, and as you heard through the presentation earlier, the DOT is planning on road work on 22 on the rural portion from County Road 20 to Trunk Highway 11 in approximately 2026. The portion within the city limits of St. Peter from 169 up to County Road 22 is anticipated to occur around 2028. The city of St. Peter is also involved as a project partner in this. They have some concerns that maybe some additional improvements need to be done to Trunk Highway 22 in the city limits. And so later last year, City of St. Peter reached out to myself to discuss the potential of a Trunk Highway 22 corridor study that the county, MnDOT, and the city would participate in. And so that study, kind of like what the study on County Road 13 and Lookout Drive, that's a corridor study that we're participating in North Mankato right now, a similar type of study would occur on Trunk Highway 22, and that would help to identify safety issues, capacity issues, hiking, biking, walking issues. And so the city is going to be the lead agency in the 22 corridor study, and they had reached out to myself to see if the county would financially participate in this study. We have 2 county road intersections in the study area, County Road 20 and County Road 15. So from my standpoint, I believe the county has a vested interest in potential improvements at those intersections. Typically, improvements at intersections are developed through an intersection control evaluation study. I've been through several of those studies before, and given the cost to do one of those studies and the number of county road, I call them legs, that come into those intersections, I would recommend that the county participate up to $5,000 in the corridor study. And so I'd be more than happy to answer any questions on this item.
Madam Chair, is this a contract that needs to be signed soon?
This is a contract that the county won't be signing. The contracting authority will be running through the City of St. Peter. They have already sent out RFPs and have hired a consultant. Bolton and Mink was the low bid proposal. They were approximately, I believe, $88,300. The other 2 RFPs that came in were significantly more expensive. And so I believe the city has already executed contracts with Bolton and Mink. The first project management team meeting is already set for August 8th, which I would be a part of that group that helps lead the study.
Then I'm going to leave Jackie out of this and simply move approval.
Yes.
Second.
Further discussion? Hearing and seeing none. Sarah, please call the roll.
Commissioner Morrow?
Yes.
Commissioner Lipke?
Yes.
Commissioner Hack?
Yes.
Commissioner Kolars?
Yes.
Commissioner Drannell?
Yes, thank you. And another item for Seth.
Yes, the next item is to consider a cooperative construction agreement for the County Road 5, Sunrise Drive, and Broadway Avenue roundabout project. This is an item that we have discussed several times since probably as early as January of this year. The City of St. Peter is intending to build a new fire station at the northwest quadrant of this intersection. And so because of the construction of a new fire station and the anticipated growth that is occurring on the west side of St. Peter, the city had submitted a local road improvement plan grant application to hopefully receive bond dollars to help fund an improvement project at this intersection, and also to conduct a study at the intersection to determine exactly what the right type of intersection improvement that should look like. And so back in January, the city, along with its consultant, was before the county board presenting the results of an ICE study. And again, the ICE study is that intersection control evaluation study. And out of that study, it was determined that a roundabout was the best solution for improvements at that intersection. And so since the county has County Road 5 and one leg of this intersection improvement. That's why we're involved. And when we have these joint projects, we develop a cooperative construction agreement between the city and the county, which lays out everybody's roles and responsibilities, including how any financial splits occur. And so in your packet, you do have a copy of the cooperative construction agreement. It also has exhibits showing what the county's responsibilities in this project are, future maintenance responsibilities, and it also shows a breakdown of how the cost splits are going to work. The city was successful in receiving a $1.25 million LRAP grant. The city will be prorating a portion of that grant towards the cost responsibilities for the county, and that is all laid out and how that proration works in the exhibits. The exhibits are based on the low bid that the city received for the work to be done at the intersection. Dirt Merchants was the low bidder. The agreement is written in such a way that final cost responsibilities for the county and the city will be based on those final actual construction amounts when all those items are known. That includes engineering in there also. So the city has seen the draft of the cooperative construction agreement. They've provided comments back. The county attorney has provided me several comments, and of course we discussed it at last week's county board workshop. And so being more than happy to answer any questions on this, but I'm seeking approval of the cooperative construction agreement.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion? Commissioner Morrow? No? You have to say anything? Okay.
Madam Chair, you're very comfortable with this agreement?
Yes, we do have an adopted cost participation policy for general cooperative projects, and it follows those general outlines.
Thank you.
Yes.
Madam Chair, I'm wondering if this is an agreement that needs to be signed before Ms. Langhammer.
It would be helpful if we could have this one signed also.
Madam Chair, I would amend my motion to approve the agreement and authorize Jackie Kopit to sign on behalf of Nicollet County.
I'll second that amendment.
Any further discussion? So first we need to vote on the amendment. Sarah, please call the roll.
Commissioner Morrow?
Yes.
Commissioner Lipke?
Yes.
Commissioner Hack?
Yes.
Commissioner Kolars?
Yes.
Commissioner Drano?
Yes, thank you. The amendment passes. And next to the original motion.
Commissioner Morrow?
Yes.
Commissioner Lipke?
Yes.
Commissioner Hack?
Yes.
Commissioner Kolars?
Yes.
Commissioner Drano?
Yes, thank you. So at this point, we will recess the Board of Commissioners meeting and get technology ready for the Drainage Authority meeting.
Can I make a comment yet?
Sure.
So, in my area, Seth's people, Nate and Mike Suska and his crew have been very active lately, and they've been doing a great job.
So at this point, we can reopen the continued public hearing for County Ditch 79 final acceptance and levy of the improvement project. Ms. Kopit, the show is yours.
Morning. Thank you, Madam Chair. Here we are again. This is a continued hearing from the County Ditch 79 for the final acceptance. We last was here on July 12th, and the board had asked ISG for some clarification on a letter that was dated July 12th, 2022. So Chuck Brandel is here from ISG to present the follow-up on that. It is also in your packet. I believe it starts on about page 95. It was attached in there. I don't know if you, are you?
I have it up on the screen here.
Okay, if you want to, there you go. Okay. So Mr. Brando will present his letter and proposal.
Ready for me?
Yeah.
All right. So I don't know if you read the letter. I'm just going to summarize it. It has the same opening as the previous letter, just some of the what happened, who was on site when, and who discussed this. I did add a section on typical drainage design that I think you guys are, most of you are all familiar with this. Mr. Cordes has a small 1+ foot berm adjacent to his property, he'd like that knocked down. Typical drainage design is the buffer areas are there for a buffer, but also the material that comes out of the ditch ends up there, and they become berms. So you design areas for water to drain in between those berms. So there's a standard, and I just put it in there from a standpoint of this is how typical design is. Based on the last few meetings, ISG is willing to work with a contractor to knock down the berm and seed the area along Mr. Cordes' property. There's a revised plan, which is here. And I briefly, about a 2-minute conversation with Mr. Cordes in the hallway, and then I did talk to him on the phone, taking the berm down from the close to the, what we call, I'll call it the road, south to bridge that is there, leaving the riprap overflow, so that way if there, if there's a cleaning in the future, maybe there's still an overflow. But this area would all drain to the ditch. I do have a contractor that could start the work in 2 weeks, which would be Groundworks. I just heard from them this morning. So that's why I didn't get in the letter. And they could do the work, knock this down. I'd make sure Mr. Cordes was on site, and this work could be taken care of hopefully within the next month. So we've gone through a lot of detail. I'm trying to cut to the chase. I'd like to put this issue to bed, and I think we've got a solution that Mr. Cordes can be happy with. So I did ask Mr. Cordes that if we do get somebody out there and seed this area, there would need to be some mowing and maybe some spraying. If he'd be willing to do that, to have some maintenance. You'd have to mow the yard anyways. So over the phone, he told me verbally that he would do that. So, because when you establish grass, weeds want to come up right away. You need to knock that down so you can allow the grass to grow. So that's a very quick summary of a long issue. I would ask that the board accept that and accept the design the way this is. This is a little, in the future, when you clean this ditch, either you're gonna have to work with Mr. Cordes to spread the material out further, because you only have a 16.5 foot easement, or you may build up a berm in the future. So that's why I put that standard in, because I wanted you to be aware of that this may be an ongoing issue.
Thank you. We'll now open the public hearing portion of the meeting to invite anyone who wishes to comment at this point. Mr. Cordes, I assume you'd like to speak?
Just that I had talked to Chuck, and it seems like this is an acceptable solution to the problem. So, and we would agree, that in the future and stuff like that, well, after they seed it and stuff, they would take care of the mowing and everything like we normally do. And, future cleanings of the ditch are gonna be years out. And if they just spread it reasonably on the berm and stuff like that, there's not like that much material comes out when they do the normal cleaning and stuff, that if a person's there right away with a tractor and a skidder or something like that, you can straighten it out to where it would be acceptable. So we agree to what he's proposing.
Thank you. Any additional public comment at this point? Hearing and seeing none, we can close the portion of the public hearing.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Mr. Brown, I want to thank you and ISG for coming up with this solution that addresses Mr. Cordes' concerns. So at least I, for one, am grateful for this outreach.
Madam Chair?
Commissioner Lepke?
You realize if it's dry weather, you might end up sprinkling too. You gotta get it stand. Okay.
Yeah, we actually have a with flush pump and stuff like that, we could pump water out of the ditch.
Oh, okay, great.
Any additional comments from the board at this point?
Madam Chair, I would move to accept the final acceptance report presented by ISG and direct the PPSD director to prepare findings to be presented at the next Drainage Authority meeting.
I'll second.
Madam Chair, if I may, I would maybe consider have the board consider leaving the project open until the work is all done, and then coming back to making sure that the project is completed and the berm is removed, and then we will close the report or close the project and do the billing at that time. That's just a consideration for the board.
Just trying to follow the script here.
I'm sorry. We got very overzealous there.
Would you like me to withdraw my motion?
And I'll withdraw my second.
I'm going to kind of turn to the county attorney, if that is an acceptable way to move forward on this.
I think because there's still outstanding work that needs to be completed, that it would be best to wait till after the project is complete, because the issue that was before the board was whether how that additional work was going to be completed. And because the board has made that part of the final work, let's wait till it's all done and then come back and close the project out.
All right.
I think it could be a very summary hearing. If we get the report that the work is completed, I'm not sure that the engineer needs to return back for that. The board could just hear from Ms. Cope if the work is completed, and we could close the project out at that time.
I mean, Madam Chair, could we at least accept the report from ISG today and then wait until the completion of the project?
I think certainly the board has received it and has no questions, and so that
Right.
report is there, correct.
If I may, could I at least get a confirmation that you're accepting of this proposal, that will solve the issues?
Madam Chair, if I may, I would maybe recommend doing a motion to accept Chuck Brandel's proposal on finishing the project, and then come back once the project is complete, and we'll just, for formality, close it out, and we can then do the levy portion at that time as well. I do have one further question on just for clarity of any billing purposes, and billing out. Mr. Brandel, do you anticipate any bills coming forward to Nicollet County before the closeout of this project?
No.
Okay.
I'm not sure if there's any due from the previous hearings. I didn't double check before the meeting, but
okay.
There hasn't been anything invoiced since probably April.
I agree with that. We haven't had anything. I just wanted to make sure for finance reasons on this for moving forward with that. So maybe a motion to accept ISG's proposal on the letter.
Thank you.
So, Madam Chair, because we didn't vote to withdraw, which we would have had to do, we can ignore that. I will amend my motion to accept the ISG letter of July 20th, 2022. Is that sufficient for everybody?
Second.
Further discussion? Sarah, would you please call the roll?
Commissioner Morrow?
Yes.
Commissioner Kolars?
Yes.
Commissioner Hack?
Yes.
Commissioner Lipke?
Yes.
Commissioner Drannell?
Yes, thank you.
I will contact Nate Henry when they're out there, just so he's aware.
Okay, thank you.
Does that work?
And then as soon as I hear back from ISG, I'll bring it to the board for formal closure, and then we'll levy the landowners.
Thank you.
All right, thank
Thank
you.
you.
Thank you.
Approval of the Drainage Authority agenda.
So moved.
Second?
Sarah?
Commissioner Morrow?
Yes.
Commissioner Hack?
Yes.
Commissioner Lipke?
Yes.
Commissioner Kolars?
Yes.
Commissioner Drannell?
Yes. Next on the Drainage Authority agenda is approval of the consent agenda.
So moved.
Second?
Commissioner Hack?
Yes.
Commissioner Lipke?
Yes.
Commissioner Kolars?
Yes.
Commissioner Morrow?
Yes.
Commissioner Drannell?
Yes. Seeing no public appearances for the Drainage Authority, we need a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
Commissioner Lipke?
Yes.
Commissioner Hack?
Yes.
Commissioner Kohlers?
Yes.
Commissioner Morrow?
Yes.
Commissioner Drano?
Yes. And now we can reopen the board meeting. And our next item on the board meeting agenda is the county attorney update.
Thank you, Madam Chair. In an effort to continue to provide additional information to the community and be a little more proactive than reactive as the county attorney's office tends to be in responding to situations that arise, we continued community outreach efforts tonight at the Cortland Night to Unite. Next Tuesday are some of the other community Night to Unite events in St. Peter, North Mankato, I believe Cortland as well, or excuse me, Nicollet. But tonight is Cortland's event, and so we will be there with information on fraud prevention. I also had an opportunity last Thursday to participate in a town hall meeting in North Mankato that was brought about by questions from our East African neighbors about juvenile issues, and so we had a presentation about drug trends and drug use. I talked about the juvenile justice system and what parents can expect if their kids don't go to school or get in trouble. And then we also had representatives from Human Services talking about resources for children's mental health. It was very well attended. I'm not quite sure. I think there was maybe 20 to 30 people from the community there. So it was a really good event to participate and have dialogue and present information. Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner committee reports. Commissioner Hack.
Just had the department head meeting and workshop this last week, I believe it was, and then last Friday was at the Brown Nicollet Community Health in New Ulm.
Okay. Commissioner Lepke.
I had the regular soil and water meeting in Nicollet, a workshop that everybody else was at, Brown Nicollet, which 3 of us attended, public health rather, in New Ulm. And yesterday was Rural Minnesota Energy Board. We are actually going to tour the Wilmarth power plant on
Pretty cool.
16th.
Take your nose plugs.
Oh, I don't have those plugs.
You're going to need them. Commissioner Morrow.
Thank you. 169 Corridor Coalition Board, and that was Zoom challenged, so we're rescheduling it. LAC meeting at the Lighthouse, the workshop, and the CHB Board.
Thank you. Commissioner Kohlers.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Along with the chair of the personnel meeting, Minnesota Valley Action Council, our workshop, TDS regular, last Friday's mediation, which hopefully in the next couple of weeks we can share some information on that. And this afternoon we'll be attending the comp study.
Thank you. I attended a presentation via Zoom with the State Auditor's Office and our audit. I had planning and zoning, department head and board workshop, union negotiations, and yesterday I got involved with the traffic issue on the southbound 169. So, life is good. Traffic is flowing. If you turn on a dirt road and it doesn't look like you should be there, stop. Next on our agenda is commissioner meetings and conferences. Sarah, do you have some stuff to add, though?
There are just a couple updates. Today there is the HHS, North Mankato HHS tour at 2:30. And then the AMC Fall Policy Conference registration will be opening next week.
Okay, for that. Thank you. And if you're planning on attending the AMC conference, let Sarah know so she can register you and get rooms.
I did.
Thank you. That's all.
Approve per diems and expenses?
I'll move that.
Thank you.
Second.
Thank you. Hearing no discussion. Sarah?
Commissioner Kohlers?
Yes.
Commissioner Lipke?
Yes.
Commissioner Hack?
Yes.
Commissioner Morrow?
Yes.
Commissioner Drano?
Yes.
Madam Chair, since Commissioner Morrow is the father of a bride, do we have a mother of the bride coming up in our office here too?
Lady with the big smile.
That would be the one with the big smile at the back of the room, and so we congratulate Jackie and your family.
Yes.
For this Saturday, right?
It is. So today's my last day. I'll see you next Tuesday.
Best of luck.
And you all will need your rest when you're done.
Madam Chair?
Yes.
Jackie, is it Dave and I that are doing the canvassing? Ben?
It is, actually, John, you had volunteered, so let's see, I gotta think about that. Sorry, it wasn't prepared. So Terry's not, it was Terry and Jack. So Jack, you are still continuing to canvass.
I'll teach you how to do it, John.
And John. I just need one. So John, you volunteered first. So either or, I don't care.
Okay, I'll be there.
Okay, thank you.
Do we have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
We need to vote on that last one, didn't we? Per diems and expenses? Okay.
We did. We voted.
Okay. Motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
Sarah?
Commissioner Morrow?
Yes.
Commissioner Kullars?
Yes.
Commissioner Hack?
Yes.
Commissioner Lipke?
Yes.
Commissioner Drano?
Yes. Thank you.